By the end of this video, you're going to have a step-by-step guide on how to lose weight on a plant-based diet. But more importantly, how to keep it off and make sure you don't resort back to binge eating or other unhealthy habits. I'm sure you've heard by now that incorporating a plant-based diet into your lifestyle can reduce your risk of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and several other things that kill millions of people every year. So you're going to get more benefits than just losing unwanted weight with this diet. But first, I need you to smash that subscribe button if you want to lose weight in 2024. Now let's get into tip number 1, the concept of calorie density, aka calories per bite. First, I want to tell you well done, because by deciding to go plant-based, you already eliminate some of the most calorie-dense foods you can possibly eat, which are cheese and processed meats. However, nowadays you can get all the vegan cheeses and meats you like, which although being slightly healthier, aka they have less saturated fat and they don't have any cholesterol or antibiotics, they're still very calorie dense, so not ideal if you want to lose weight. Because let me tell you, the magic of plant-based weight loss and health lies in whole and ideally unprocessed foods, as these are some of the least calorie dense yet nutritionally dense foods you can find on the planet. These foods include starchy vegetables, whole grains, legumes, fruits, as well as non-starchy vegetables. Now let's put some of these ingredients into perspective, because I know it's easy to say just eat more fruits and vegetables. However, it's hard to think of a meal if you're not used to this kind of lifestyle. So let's think about a meal that most people like. Let's say burgers and fries. Who doesn't like burgers and fries? Not necessarily known for their weight loss benefits, but let me tell you, if you choose a whole grain bun, if you make your own patty with lentils and legumes and maybe some grains in there as well, and then obviously put on all the vegetables you like, put in some salad, put in some gherkins, some tomatoes, and maybe some mustard and ketchup, you can have a very delicious burger that is nutritionally adequate, and I'll explain you in a second why. And for the second part of the meal, the chips or the fries, don't use frozen fries you can find because they're usually quite oily, even fried. Use your own potatoes. Cut your potatoes, put in some seasoning, some salt, or maybe some paprika powder, and just put them in the oven as is. Believe me, you don't need the oil. It might be a different taste experience because they don't get as crunchy, but let me tell you, it's still very delicious, and potatoes are definitely not a weight gaining food because they're very low in calories. Now, the reason I would encourage you to eat a bean burger instead of a veggie burger or fake meats, etc., is not just the concept of calorie density, because a vegetable patty would probably be less calorie dense than a legume patty, but legumes are nutritional super bombs and superheroes. They are associated with the longest living populations on this planet. But apart from that, when it comes to weight loss, they can trigger in you what scientists call the second meal effect. That basically means it helps you regulate your blood sugar, not just for the current meal you're eating, but also for the next meal, which can make you avoid cravings because they linger in your gut, which doesn't just give you good digestion, but it also keeps you fuller for longer because legumes are full of fiber, they have a high nutrient content, and they're also super rich in protein as well as complex carbohydrates. But eating a diet that is rich with the foods I earlier talked about is not the only thing I do to lose weight. Because my tip number 2 is that if you want to lose weight without having smaller portion sizes, is to not add oils to your cooking or frying. Back to the concept of calorie density, because 1 tablespoon of oil averages around 120 calories, which your body barely notices as it's a very minuscule volume. The addition to that is that oil is 100% fat, and if you overeat in calories through fat, your body can store up to 97% of that fat from oil as body fat. Whereas if you would overeat on carbohydrates, for example, after storing up to 2,000 calories worth of carbs in your liver and muscles in the form of glycogen, your body transforms glycogen into body fat at an energy expense of 30%. I am going a little bit deeper into the science of that in this video up here, so do check that out if you're interested, of why overeating in carbs is not as bad as overeating in oil and why you should therefore limit oil intake. Now you might be wondering, how can I mitigate not using oil? Let me tell you a few tips. So instead of frying with oil, you can use things like soy sauce, balsamic vinegar, water, or apple juice. You will see it works equally fine. And instead of baking with oil, you can use things like applesauce for sweet dishes or milled or ground flax seeds for savory dishes, such as bread, for example. Now, before I share with you a few keys to make sure you keep that weight off after you lose it, I need to make sure you're not making the following mistakes. And what I see as mistake number one is weighing yourself daily to track your process. Depending from which diet background you come, it might take longer for you because your metabolism might have slowed down if you come from like a calorie restricted diet, because our bodies function in a way to keep us alive. And if you've had less calories than you actually need for a long period of time, your body will adjust your metabolism and your daily caloric expenditure down. Therefore, a lot of people plateau if they go on a strictly calorie deficit diet over time. That's why I really love the concept of a whole food plant-based diet, because you can eat ad libitum, you eat until you're satisfied of all these amazing foods and you will lose weight. If you really want to weigh yourself because that is what keeps you motivated, I would suggest only weighing yourself like once a week because that way you can probably mitigate some frustration if you don't lose a lot of weight right on, because this isn't a crash diet, this is a lifestyle. But don't worry, even if your weight loss progress is slow, this diet has a way of making you feel good and energized, even if you still got weight to lose. So you will definitely feel other benefits early on. Now, the second biggest mistake I see people make is restricting carbohydrates on a plant-based diet, because let me remind you, carbs are your body's preferred fuel source. And as I have stated earlier, your body has a hard time gaining weight from eating carbohydrates, excessive or not. The only important thing to note here, and I don't want you to quote me wrong on this, is that most junk food, plant-based or not plant-based, is usually a combination of a lot of carbs with a lot of fat. Think things like chocolate and donuts and pizza with vegan cheese on it or normal cheese on it, pasta with creamy sauces, etc., which will make you gain weight if eaten in excess, obviously. Not because of the carb content, but because of the fat content. Because a gram worth of fat is 9 calories and a gram worth of carbohydrates is only 4 calories. Because that's why most of these things I just talked about, like pasta with creamy sauces and vegan cheeses on pizza, etc., make these dishes being mostly calories from fat than from carbs. Hence people say pizza makes me gain weight, it's all because of all the carbs, when in fact most of the calories are actually from fat. So don't make this mistake and limit, or if possible, completely avoid vegan junk food for faster weight loss results. But again, silver lining, don't restrict carbs in the forms of starchy vegetables like potatoes, as well as fruits and grains, pasta and bread. And I can tell you, you can eat refined grains even if you want to lose weight. Are refined grains like pasta and white bread super healthy for you? No, they don't have any fiber, they're not as nutritious, they're not gonna fill you up for longer, etc. But when it comes to, is pasta by itself making you gain weight? The answer is no. So I wouldn't be frightened of refined carbohydrates. Just make sure if you eat non-whole wheat pasta that you combine it with a sauce of vegetables and legumes, etc. And mistake number 3 I see people make when they try to lose weight plant-based is trying to be too creative in the kitchen. Because let me tell you, perfect is the enemy of good. If you're new to this lifestyle, don't try to experiment with new recipes every single day, unless obviously you're into that kind of thing and you experience tremendous joy from that, because it can easily get overwhelming, at least in my experience. Instead, I would personally try to find a few meals that you like, and I would have them every other day in rotation. For example, you can have curry with rice, and you can use different beans or vegetables to keep things interesting. You can have pasta with lentil bolognese and vegetables, which can easily be turned into a lasagna. Then for breakfast, you could have breakfast smoothies with different fruits or vegetables, or oatmeal can be kept interesting by adding different fruits or spices. As lunch sandwiches can range from adding hummus or tofu or tempeh as protein source and mixing things up. Use rocket, use normal leafy salads, use sauerkraut or tomatoes, etc. You get my point. I personally would choose a few meals I like, and if I want to spice things up, I would just simply tweak on some of the ingredients. In my experience, habitual meals and only experimenting occasionally is the key to long-term fun and success on this diet. So when it comes to keeping the weight off, here are 3 things you want to make sure you're doing and 2 things you want to avoid. Now, the 3 things to do is, number 1, the majority of calories should come from fruits, vegetables, starchy and non-starchy, grains, and legumes. Number 2, don't portion control or calorie restrict. If you're hungry, you should be eating. It's best to be prepared with snacks or meals throughout the day, so think dried fruit, fresh fruit, crackers with hummus, vegetables, baked potatoes, healthy sandwiches. You get my point. Just make sure you never run into starvation, hunger. And doing this will help you avoid binges, which are usually cravings for super calorie dense foods, let's be honest. And number 3 is get yourself a vitamin B12 supplement if you want to be long-term successful and healthy in this lifestyle. I did a couple of videos about B12, so do check them out if you're interested. If you want to sustain a healthy vegan diet, definitely get a vitamin B12 supplement. Now, 2 things you should be avoiding is number 1, social pressure. There are so many people out there who have a lot of opinions when it comes to weight loss. So try to ignore all these crash diets and opinions and stick with a whole food plant-based diet. Obviously do more research on the topic if you like, by all means, because you will find that this is the only diet that has ever proven in interventional studies not just to help with weight loss while eating a libitum, as I earlier explained, and without even mandatory exercise or calorie restriction. That is the point to underline here. This is a diet to be successful long term. The second thing to avoid is protein shakes. Protein deficiency does not exist if you eat enough calories. Let me tell you again, it doesn't exist if you eat enough calories. If you train and if you work out and you want to bump up your protein for muscle synthesis, simply focus on eating protein-rich plant foods such as legumes, beans and lentils, add in some tofu and tempeh, choose whole grains, and use soy or hemp milk instead of oat or almond milk to boost up your protein content. Now on top of that, I'd strongly suggest you avoid the 5 foods I mentioned in this video if you want to lose weight in 2024. I see you in my next one if you like. Take care. Bye!